Ever since the first film of the franchise premiered 40 years ago, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and its most legendary antagonist, Freddy Krueger, has rooted itself in the collective consciousness. And you'd kind of be hard pressed to find someone that doesn't actually know a lot about the franchise, especially its iconic villain, a child murderer who exacts revenge on those who killed him by killing their children as they sleep from the depths of their nightmares. Which explains the nightmare bit of the title, but why Elm Street? Wes Craven consciously selected the street name based on its infamy as the name of the street where John F. Kennedy was shot, revealing to him that it was where the innocent world ended. But that isn't just the sole reason. Now, as Freddy Krueger himself says, every town has an Elm Street, and he's not actually all that far off. And that's because Elm Street is the 15th most common street name in America, with 5,233 streets all being named Elm Street. The ubiquitous nature of the name and Freddy's chilling observation suggests that murder can happen anywhere. Investigation Discovery is actually run with that idea, and if you haven't already seen it, then please go check it out, as it is literally a fantastic watch. But using the infamy of the Elm Street name and its commonality as the premise for its new true crime documentary, The Real Murders on Elm Street, which looks at the true crime stories behind 6 murders, mixing dramatic reenactments with testimonies from those associated with the crimes whose only connection is that they all occurred on one of the many Elm Streets across the country. And The Real Murder on Elm Street begins with The Killer in the Walls, which recounts the chilling tale of Daniel LaPlante. Now, for anyone that's unaware, he is literally a walking horror film. He is disturbing beyond all counts. And when it comes to true crime, for some unknown reason, he's like one of my worst fears, because technically he torments you with a fear of the unknown without you having any knowledge of it, but just by giving you the sheer energy of feeling like someone is watching you at all times. And that's because with Daniel LaPlante, he is. So Daniel was listed as a social outcast who grew up in Townsend, Massachusetts, in an unassuming home on Townsend's Elm Street. Now, in his teenage years, Daniel was arrested multiple times. This was because he was breaking into homes, stealing jewelry, money, and other goods. But it was actually after being caught breaking into the Bowen family's home on December 8th, 1986, where Daniel's story goes from tragic to utterly disturbing. So Frank Bowen unfortunately lost his wife to cancer, and this left Frank a single father to Tina and Karen Bowen. Now, the convenience of this is absolutely mind-boggling, and it only actually helped Daniel. But you have to hear this out for a second. So after the 2 poor girls lost their mother, they decided to invest in a Ouija board and create some kind of seance. And in doing so, the 2 young girls were trying to connect with and speak with their mother. When they would use this Ouija board or do these seances to try and connect with the dead, they would ask it certain questions, such as, "If you are my mother, can you please tap on the walls?" And lo and behold, the walls would begin to tap. Or, "Can you knock 3 times if this is the answer?" And to the girls, it felt like they were actually getting some kind of reply, because when they would ask these questions, the walls would begin to knock. Not only that, but this was actually happening for weeks, because Tina and Karen Bowen did go and tell their father about this, as he too had noticed certain things that were going on in the house, like misplaced objects and the TV changing channels the second that they would leave the room. Now, Tina and Karen also told Frank about what was going on with their little seances, but Frank ultimately put this down to the 2 girls grieving the loss of their mother, and just simply trying to find some sort of way to feel like they were connecting back with her. And he actually crossed this off as the children grieving, as the other answers to Frank at that point would have been the fact that it was either a poltergeist or the girls were playing tricks on each other. Problematically, it was neither of these, and the answer to what was actually going on was a hell of a lot worse. On the 8th, Frank had noticed that somebody had used their toilet and began to search his home, only to find Daniel LaPlante clad in face paint and a hairy jacket, wielding a hatchet and a steel wrench. Daniel then forcefully but calmly led Frank and his 2 daughters, as well as one of the daughters' friends, into a bedroom. Now, Tina Bowen had actually dated Daniel LaPlante years before, and she actually managed to escape from this situation and go and grab help. When she escaped to go get help, Daniel LaPlante did the exact same thing. He just seemed to simply disappear. Except, Daniel LaPlante was a lot closer than any of them knew. 2 days later, Frank Bowen goes to return home to grab a few items. Upon doing so, he notices a man in his window. He calls the police, which is when Officer Stephen Bezanson shows up, who is also one of the officers interviewed in the documentary The Real Murders on Elm Street. So the officer opens the door and turns to find that there are 2 pictures hung up on the wall, which were held up by knives with "I'm still here, come find me, and I'm going to kill you" written all over them. The officer then began to search the home top to bottom, only to find nothing until he went downstairs into the basement. Now, the Bowen family had actually created a hidden wall in order to hide pipes that they didn't want to see in their basement downstairs. And in hiding these pipes had somewhat created this hidden room. And when the officer walked inside, he would find a mound of clothes that he stated was around about 4 foot high. And like he said, who on earth leaves a 4-foot pile of laundry inside of a hidden room? So he decided to go through the laundry and immediately would find Daniel LaPlante hidden inside. Daniel LaPlante had been living inside of the walls for weeks, secretly watching and playing mind games with them. He would even remove certain bits of electrical outlets so that he could literally spy through the walls on the family. So when he noticed the 2 girls were doing a seance, when they would ask to hear certain knocks and certain noises, it was actually Daniel LaPlante on the other side of the wall just responding. So Daniel LaPlante was arrested and held in custody until October of 1987, which is when his mum would remortgage their home so that she could pay his $10,000 bail. So bearing in mind his mum remortgaged their home and had him released in October of 1987, this next event occurred on December 1st, 1987. So just 6 weeks after his release, Daniel LaPlante broke into the home of Andrew and Priscilla Gustafson for the 2nd time in under a month. When Daniel broke into the home, no one else was there. While Daniel LaPlante was inside, Priscilla returned home with her 5-year-old son, William. Normally, Daniel LaPlante told investigators he would have left to avoid being caught, but for some reason, Daniel LaPlante opted not to. Instead, he locked William in the closet before tying a very pregnant Priscilla to her bed. He then proceeded to her before shooting Priscilla twice in the head with a stolen handgun. He would then unlock 5-year-old William from the closet and drown him in the upstairs bathtub. Abigail, Priscilla and Andrew's daughter, who was only 7 at the time, would too be drowned in a downstairs bathtub when she returned home from school by Daniel LaPlante. And after murdering 3 individuals, technically 4 with Priscilla being pregnant, Daniel once again would escape. This would only be reported when Andrew returned home from work, as Andrew would go in his home upstairs and find his pregnant wife tied to the bed with 2 gunshot wounds to her face. In fact, Andrew was so petrified he didn't even check the house to see if his children were alive. After seeing his wife, he simply assumed that they too were probably in the same state and quickly left to ring the authorities. After they were able to convincingly find Andrew's alibi, officers quickly turned their attention to that of Daniel LaPlante. Because of the methods used in the individual going inside of the home, he was actually first on their list, and rightly so. As only 2 days later, on December 3rd, they would actually find and locate Daniel LaPlante hiding in a trash can in Ayers. With this, DNA and just about everything stacked against Daniel LaPlante at this point, the 17-year-old would be sentenced to 45 years inside of prison after his conviction of the 3 murders. And that's one of just many murders that have happened on the infamous street that is known as Elm Street. If you like this video or content like it, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below. Like and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Otherwise, if not, thanks for watching and have a nice day.